I did research. I listened to people from both sides of the aisle, from people on the left like Destiny and Anna Kasparian. I would listen to what CNN had to say. And from the right, like Michael Knowles, Brett Cooper, Megyn Kelly, Blair White, and independent leaning people like Amir Dom and Brad Palumbo. I don't have to censor my speech. For example, in my household growing up, everybody got called retarded. And I know that's one of those words that you just literally cannot say because it's so horrible. We said it as a joke in my household. We would never call someone that truly had mental retardation a retard. It was a joke within our family. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Patchwork Podcast. So I wanted to talk about why I left the left. So go ahead and get in. I grew up a Christian and a conservative, and I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. And I never really cared about politics until the later years of high school, probably like very into my junior year, start of my senior year, like that time I really started to care about it. At that point, I started designing sweatshirts and t-shirts for social issues. It was something I really cared about. Once I decided that I was going to school for graphic design, I knew I wanted to go for social, political, economic issues. Like I wanted to go work for a company and design stuff that was set for these issues. But another huge thing was I feel like conservatives are really bad at art. And so I wanted to bring a true sense of creativity to conservatism, and that's still my goal. So I went to college in 2020 and I voted for Trump that year on mail-in ballot. And literally only one person at school knew I voted for Trump, because like at art school, if you're a conservative, it's immediate blacklist because it's like you're ignorant. I don't even want to give you the time of day. Because I genuinely remember there was a girl that, I think I talked about this in the last episode, but she had voted for Trump. She was like the MAGA girl on campus. I don't know how everyone knew. I don't know if she had posted it onto her Instagram or what the reason was that everyone knew she had voted for Trump, but people knew. So that was something I was genuinely scared of, was like people knowing that I had voted for Trump. But I very quickly started to change my mind. I don't know if it was the environment I was in or the people I was around or what it particularly was that made me start to change my mind. But I've always had this believe whatever you want. I don't care. Be an LGBTQ activist, be a socialist, be transgender, be religious, be a conservative. I don't care. Just be a good person and we can be friends. Like I genuinely don't care what my friends' political or religious beliefs are. I just care that, we get along, that we can have a good time together, and that's really all that matters. But I very quickly started becoming the loving Christian, where my entire goal, like to the point where I would disregard what the Bible says in order to be loving and accepting. So, in high school, coming up with the belief that homosexuality is a sin, but then going to art school, you're literally surrounded by LGBTQ people. I don't want them to think I'm the hateful, bigoted, closed-minded conservative. So I'm like doing my research, I'm looking into the historical context of everything, and I come to a point where I'm like, no, it's not a sin. People are misunderstanding, they're misinterpreting it. You have to look at the historical context. I really got into listening to this preacher, Justin Lee, which a little synopsis of who he is. Justin Lee, author of Torn, Rescuing the Gospel from the Gay versus Christian Debate, previously believed that homosexuality was a sin. Lee said that he thought being gay was a sinful choice, but he was attracted to men and thought it was a phase he would grow out of. And I wanted to believe everything he was saying so badly. I even remember whenever I was interning at a church one summer, debating with the other interns there and me being like, it's literally not a sin, like look into the historical context of it all. And I was pretty liberal at this point as well. I remember them all being like, it's just not, you're taking the Bible out of context, actually. This is what it says. I was disagreeing. I was like, I don't know, it's not like that. And because I truly didn't want to believe it, because it's a really hard thing to believe, especially when it, for my human self, I don't care. If that's what makes them happy, that's what they want to do. But we have to remember that it's about what God wants for our lives, not what we want for our lives, because there's a million things that I've wanted for my life that I couldn't see the damage behind it, and I wanted to do it, but God was telling me not to, and I did it anyways, and the damage came. So probably by the end of the sophomore year, I was very liberal. I had lost my faith at this point because I'd struggled so much with depression and anxiety for maybe 4 years or so at this point, and I was so exhausted. I was so to the point where I was like, God, why would you ever let me suffer this much? How could you possibly be real? And it's still one of those things that's hard for me to understand, why is there suffering when God is so good? But I think, my new understanding of that now is it's a result of the sinful world we live in and free will. And I'm not saying I made the choices that brought depression on myself, or that other people who are horribly struggling with mental health brought that on themselves. I'm just saying it's the result of living in a broken world, and it's so incredibly sad. But I do believe that God has the power to lift mental health struggles off of anyone, because he lifted it off of me for reasons that I cannot explain. So at this point, I was radically pro-choice. I remember when Roe v. Wade was being debated, and then it got overturned, and I was like, literally, how is this possible? They're taking away our right. This is so wrong. This is America. What about freedom? And all of that. I was very much like, what is going on? Women's rights are being taken away. I'm waking up tomorrow without rights. But it truly came down to the fact that I wanted to know the truth, no matter what the truth was. I did research. I listened to people from both sides of the aisle, from people on the left like Destiny and Anna Kasparian. I would listen to what CNN had to say. And from the right, like Michael Knowles, Brett Cooper, Megyn Kelly, Blair White, and independent-leaning people like Amir Dom and Brad Palumbo. I was truly just trying to open up my mind, see what else is out there. Let's listen to every argument that everybody had. I truly think that people think I just got like brainwashed by the alt-right. But what I was doing was truly just listening to both sides and seeing who could convince me the best. And I've always gotten like the comment too that it's like, oh, you became a conservative to find a husband or whatever. I became a conservative way before I met my husband. It had nothing to do with wanting to find a man or anything like that. Truly, I didn't even want to get married before I met my husband. I was like, I'm not, like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. And so it was just kind of one of those things where I met him and I knew we were going to get married, and it was amazing. And I'm so grateful for that. Something that it makes no sense to me is where everyone is always commented like, you right-wing grifter, as if being a conservative is what is going to get me to the top rather than being on the left. Have you seen how many people get canceled when people find out, oh, they followed Charlie Kirk, they liked this Donald Trump post, they liked this post that seems slightly political and slightly right-leaning, so this person deserves to be canceled? Or when certain TikTok creators weren't immediately posting how sorry and sad they were for people on the left when Kamala Harris lost the election, people were speculating they must be a Trump supporter, get rid of them. I didn't realize how horrible they were. Let's use common sense here. If I was gonna be a grifter, I would grift on the left. I truly am just talking about my thoughts, opinions, and beliefs, and how I've gotten to this point in my life. I could not care less at this point if people like me, if people don't, if people want to support me, because I've already lost what I'm gonna lose. So at this point, I'm just sharing my thoughts and opinions, and if you like it, you like it, and if you don't, you don't. So I'd gotten to a point where I'd done a lot of research and I'd shifted back over to being a conservative. At this time, I was also doing research on religion and the validity of the argument that Jesus Christ was real and that he's truly the savior of the world, and that the miracles they say he did were actually true. But when I shifted over to the right, I didn't tell anyone really, because I was so scared that I was going to lose my friends and the life I'd built for myself in Savannah. And I loved my life there so much and was so happy in where I was at, like with going to school and my friends and where I was living and all of that. And I didn't want to mess that up because it was so precious to me. But eventually everybody fully realized I was probably conservative after I did a project featuring the story of the detransitioner Chloe Cole, and that the belief that trans women are not real women and that males cannot become females and females cannot become males. I mean, at that point, I feel like you basically 100% out yourself as a conservative. There are people on the left that do believe that and that are sane, but where I was at, everyone on the left was like, you're an idiot, you're insane, you Trump supporter, like, you know what I'm saying. And I think one of the most eye-opening things to me was seeing how intolerant the tolerant and loving left was, that had been rooting me on and cheering for me for years. Whenever they thought I was on the left, and then when they didn't know my true political beliefs, they were supporting me and they were loving me, until I was willing to disagree with them, until I was willing to say something outside of their groupthink, and then I lost everything I had there. And it was truly so eye-opening, because if you're truly the party of love and acceptance and tolerance, then you will love, accept, and tolerate people that believe differently than you. And that is what I found on the right. The people on the right are willing to have open discourse and discussion with people that disagree with them, whether or not you are on the left, you are a socialist, you are on the right, or you're LGBTQ, or you're Christian, whatever you may be. They don't care. They want open discussion, and they want people who disagree with them, because that is how you learn and become a better person and expand your thoughts and beliefs, by not just hanging around people that have the exact same beliefs as you. Because the thing about cancel culture is I think it's truly one of the worst things for American society. Like, you mean to tell me maybe there's someone like an influencer you've loved and supported for so long, and then you find out that they did something that you didn't like before. Now, I'm not talking about the people that get canceled and do absolutely horrible things. I'm talking about someone someone like Brooke Schofield that had made racist comments when she was a teenager, and they resurfaced now that she is this huge influencer, and people tried to cancel her and tried to ruin her life and tried to take everything that she had worked so hard for. Like, have you never said or did something as a teenager or a young person or even as an adult that you now regret, and that's not who you are anymore, and you would never do that again? Because that is so many people, and people are just pulling up things from 12 years ago, and now they're a completely different person and they're trying to ruin their lives. I think that the people on the right, more often than not, truly care about free speech and expression. People on the right have accepted me and wanted to talk to me and welcomed me in, no matter of my social standing or my political views or wherever I'm at. They've welcomed me in and been very kind to me, and it's incredibly refreshing. I don't have to censor my speech. For example, in my household growing up, everybody got called retarded. And I know that's one of those words that you just literally cannot say because it's so horrible. We said it as a joke in my household. We would never call someone that truly had mental retardation a retard. It was a joke within our family.
You don't call retarded people retards. It's bad taste. You call your friends retards when they're acting retarded.
But I never said that word in college because I knew how much that would cost me if I said a word like that. And there's just so much pressure on the left to be this perfect little social justice warrior and to phrase every single thing you do right. For example, I would only refer to Black people as African American, as if every Black person is African American. I don't know why it seemed like that was the right social thing to refer to them as, and so I did. But it was like you had to say everything right or you were deemed socially unacceptable. And I think this is why so many people have left the left, because they've gone so insane to the point where they are so radicalized. People like RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, Amalek Bonobi, they've all left the left.
A lot of people ask me why I left the Democratic Party. And I say, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. This is not the party anymore of Martin Luther King, of Robert Kennedy, of John Kennedy.
It is our Constitution that is under attack today. I first joined the Democratic Party over 20 years ago. What I saw back then was a party that still stood for free speech. That was a big open tent party that welcomed people with different ideas, different backgrounds, different religions, stood up for civil liberties, that fought for everyday Americans. Fast forward to where we are today, that party is completely unrecognizable.
I felt just generally unhappy in my life, and I didn't know why. And then every day I would go into work and you would hear nothing but hate and hate and hate and hate, specifically from people who claim to be tolerant. A big part of what made me question it was going into work and hearing a lot of hate towards white people. And I'm half Black, and I was raised by the white side of my family. So it was a hard thing to go into work every day and hear from all these different people of all different races, many of whom were white, that they hated white people and just crazy, blatantly racist things. So that was my initial call out, and I went to the VP and I said, I don't understand why you feel this way about white people. You have people at this organization who are white working with you. Should I feel that way about the family that's raised me? And he said, you don't understand how oppressed you really are. You should be angry, and I'm not here to make you feel better about your family.
At the end of it all, what I care most is about free speech, border control, the economy, and the basic truth that male and females are not the same and we are not interchangeable. It's like it says in Genesis 1:27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. And he said it was good. And now we are out here as a culture trying to change that idea, trying to change the fundamental truth that so much of reality relies on, that male and female are different and they are not interchangeable. Democrats have basically in full supported the male and female sports movement, which is just absolutely ridiculous if we're looking at this argument as a whole. People on the left will often give me the argument, gender and sex are different. And so you can identify as any gender you want. There's hundreds of millions of genders. You can make it up, you identify with whatever you want. We understand that we are still biologically a female or biologically a male, but that is not what you're saying at all in the legislation that you're trying to put into place. Because if you truly believed that gender was just a social construct, then you wouldn't be trying to put males into female-only sports. And that's part of the issue, because I understand that there is a biological difference in males and females. Males are faster, stronger, they have a bigger wingspan than women. They are statistically going to outperform women in any sport that we try to compete against them in. So why is this argument so hard for people to understand? And I think it comes down to the fact that if you believe that a trans woman should not be in female sports, then you're admitting that that trans woman is not really a woman. because they are not. And that is a fight that I will continuously stand on. It is a hill that the left will die on as well. That is why I talk so much about that, because it is one of the biggest issues in the culture war. And I don't want Gen Z to feel discouraged or to feel like they can't speak up and share their true feelings. The left has made it more clear every day that they do not truly care about women. If you're going to allow males to come into female-only spaces and bathrooms, go into female-only sports, go into female-only sororities, what is wrong with you? You are no longer protecting the women that your party has said for years and years on end that you are feminist and that you stand on protecting women. You are no longer doing that. You've been so radicalized, you don't even stand by the old values that your party had. That is another huge reason as to why I left the left. A lot of people have asked me how I could go from being pro-choice to pro-life. And the answer is I simply saw the damage that having abortions has on women and the regret and the mental and physical toll it takes on women that they don't talk about. To this day, I still don't know what I believe for women that go through rape or sexual assault and it results in a pregnancy, because there are two arguments to this position and I understand both arguments. One being that God created life and all life has value, and the way that they got here doesn't devalue that life. Two wrongs don't make a right, so having an abortion doesn't fix the fact that you were raped. But I also completely understand the argument, and if wouldn't this put her through more trauma? She wasn't asking this for herself. It wasn't like she was having unprotected sex and she got pregnant. I completely understand both those arguments, and I still don't fully know my position on either side. I really honestly lean to where I'm at now that the most fair thing to do is that we've given it back to the states, to let states decide, because I don't think it should have ever been a fundamental right. So please feel free to share your thoughts and opinions on that, because I still have not fully come to a decision, because I truly do understand both arguments. But I just think the fairest thing at this point is just to leave it to the states. But my main problem with the pro-choice movement is how radicalized it's become, to the point where girls will have like 6 or 7 abortions, or there should be no limit to when you can have the abortion, up to 9 months or whatever you want. Just leave whatever the government says out of it, which I also completely understand the argument of leave the government out of it. I truly do get that argument, because I want the government as uninvolved in my life as they can possibly be. So I get that argument, but then it comes down to the idea that does life begin at conception? Well, if it does, then it truly is murder. And so it's a really hard discussion and debate to have, and I truly don't know where I fully stand on it, but I do believe that all life has value and that God can make something so beautiful out of a broken situation, like or whatever it may be. And so I do think that there is a purpose for every life, and regardless of if you're going to end up in a low income household or in an adoption center, wherever you end up, I think that your life has value and God can make something beautiful out of every life. So when I finished my research on religion, I came to the conclusion that God is 100% real, and that the stories of Jesus and his miracles is 100% true. One of the books I read had been Case for Christ, and a quick summary for anyone that hasn't ever heard of that book or seen the movie. In the late 1970s, Lee Strobel was an avowed atheist, raising a family and working as a journalist in Chicago. His world was shaken when his wife became a Christian. Strobel was angry that his wife was changing as a person and worried that his marriage couldn't withstand the tension. So he went on a quest to discredit Christianity with objective evidence, meeting with experts around the country to try and disprove the Bible. Along the way, Strobel discovered that the evidence for Christianity isn't all legend and myth. In fact, he came to realize that it would take a bigger leap of faith to continue believing there is no God than it takes to believe. Strobel joined his wife in her newfound faith, and he eventually left journalism to be a pastor and an author. And this book had me on my knees begging for forgiveness to God for all of the horrible mistakes I'd made over the last year and a half of not only not loving God, but truly wanting nothing to do with him. Yet he had mercy on me. And at the end of it all, I'm so glad that I made this switch. The people around me have been far more supportive of everything I've done ever since I became a conservative. People have wanted to have conversations and talk about our differences and beliefs, and we don't want to kill each other at the end of the conversation. I can have friends where we have huge differences in our beliefs and we are still willing to talk about it and have discussion, and it's been so amazing, and I really appreciate that. And I just think that if you are somebody that is trying to figure out where you are aligned with politically, just listen to people from both sides. See what argument convinces you the best. One of the places I love to go is Jubilee, which some of their videos, you know, people get cut off a lot and stuff, but it is a really great forum for debate and it's really interesting to listen to. So I'm very happy with my decision to be a conservative and to try to live in more of that lifestyle with those values. I do believe as a Christian that conservatism lines up a lot more with the Bible, but I also fully believe that you can be a Democrat and be a Christian, be a Republican and be a Christian. I think God would tell us to stop fighting so endlessly about all of this, but I also think God would want us to stand on the truth and to stand on his word. I think at the end of the day, as long as you are truly following his truth and not trying to warp it to fit what you want to believe as a human, as I did for so long, I would seriously take whatever the Bible said and turn it to be what I wanted it to say. And that's not the way we're supposed to be reading the Bible. We're supposed to read the Bible and say, oh God, I realize I've messed up. I've done this in my life, and I want to change, and I want to repent, and I want to do better, and moving forward I want to try to live my life more for you. And I think if you have that mindset going into reading the Bible that you want God to change you, you don't want to change God, then it will impact your life in such a beautiful way for the rest of your life. That is the story of how and why I left the left. Thank you so much for coming to the Patchwork Podcast.